Hi, and welcome to Elizabeth Ann Reads. I'm Ann, and today we are doing the very last part of my 20 in 2020 series. This is the fourth video that I've made. We've covered 20 authors I want to read, 20 books I want to reread, and 20 books off my TBR that I want to get to in 2020. And today we're doing part 4, which is 20 categories that I want to read from, and I'm going to explain that more in a minute. But I'm going to link the playlist below so you can catch up on all those videos if you haven't seen them. Also, I'll be updating that playlist throughout the year because I'll be doing quarterly check-ins to go over these lists. And I'll add those to the playlist as well. So you might want to add that playlist as well to your watch list so that you'll know when something new comes along. So yes, 20 categories I want to read from, but it's not that simple. I picked 20 categories, and the goal is to read 20 books in each of those categories. Now, for those of you that are quickly doing the math in your head, and you're thinking, that's 400 books. It's not 400 books. So don't worry. I'm not planning on reading 400 books this year. I would love to, but that's not going to happen. But there will be overlap between the categories. So, for example, this is Ken Follett's The Pillars of the Earth, which I have plans to read starting in January. This would meet multiple categories. It would, hang on, let me look at my list real quick. It would meet 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, at least 5 of those categories. So, again, it's not 400 books. I don't know how many it's going to be in the end, but the goal is to read 20 books in each of these 20 categories. So, this video is going to be pretty short now that I've given you a really long explanation, because I'm just going to mention what those 20 categories are. It took me a while. The first 15 came pretty quickly, and the last 5 I really struggled with. But I think I've got it figured out. So, the first category is physical TBR, so books I already own, but that's going to be books I've owned prior to 2020. So anything that gets added to the shelf in 2020 does not count for this category. It has to be things I already own as of right now. Category number 2 is the opposite of that. It's books I acquire in 2020. They can be new releases, or they can just be books that I picked up or was gifted in 2020. Category number 3 is rereads. I'm a big rereader. I already have plans to reread 20 books. I will probably reread more than that. But I decided to put it on here as a category because rereading. I also am going to be participating in the BookTube Rereadathon, which is just a prompt each month. So you reread 1 book per month. I'm going to reread more than that, but I am going to try and work those prompts into what I'm rereading. Okay, category number 4 is books over 500 pages. So those are sometimes referred to as tomes. So tomes, or books over 500 pages. Again, already this has met 2 categories because it's met the physical TBR category and the over 500 pages. All right, category number 5 is continuing a series. So series that I've already started but are continuing on in. So if I start a new series, that would not count. The first book would not count. If I continued on and read the second or third book, those could count for this, but not the first one. It's series that I've already started that I want to continue on with. Category 6 is middle grade, nice and broad. Category 7, again, fantasy, very broad. I actually thought about splitting it between fantasy and like fairy tale retellings, but it's just all going to be lumped into fantasy. Category 8 is nonfiction. This is going to be a little more of a struggle, but I definitely want to increase the amount of nonfiction that I'm reading. Category 9 is historical fiction. So again, category number 3 for this book. Category 10 is new to me authors. Category 4. So again, any authors that I have not read before, Ken Follett would be one of them, will go in this category. Category 11 is books published before 1980. 1980 is the year I was born. So basically books published before I was born. So that could be classics, that could be modern classics, that could be something published in 79. It just needs to be published before 1980. Category 12 is books with movie adaptations. I've mentioned this before, I'm not a big movie watcher, so this is going to be a little bit of a tricky category because a lot of times I just don't care to watch the movie adaptation. And it doesn't say this, but it does include me watching the adaptation, not just that one exists. So, like, for example, I read Big Little Lies this past year and really enjoyed that, but I have no interest in watching the series. So, it says movie adaptations or TV shows adaptations in general. So it'll be, yeah, we'll just have to play it by ear, what that's actually going to look like. But things like The Princess Bride, which I am planning on rereading, obviously I'm going to watch the movie again too, or The Never Ending Story, another book I'm planning on rereading. I could pick up that movie, also a great movie, and watch that. We'll just kind of have to see how it goes throughout the year, but the plan is 20 books that I read and then watch the adaptation of. Category 13 is what I'm titling New Favorites. So any book that I read for the first time this year that I know I'm going to want to reread in the future, that's going to be a new favorite. So yeah, this could end up in that list, but I don't know. That's an interesting one because I won't know if it's going to be on the list till after I read the books. So hopefully I'll end up with 20 new favorites this year. Let's see. Category 14 is books that are set outside the US or the UK. The vast majority of the reading I do is set in those places, which I'm not mad about. I like reading those things, but I want to make sure I'm reading a little more broadly too. So books set other places in Europe, books set in Asia or Africa or South America or Australia. We are saying real places, so not fantasy books set in other worlds, but books set on Earth. Well, wouldn't even have to be on Earth, I guess, technically. If I read, like, The Martian. I'll have to think about that. But books set outside the US or the UK. Category 15 is what I'm calling the BookTube Recommends category, or BookTube Darlings. This is not going to be just books that one person talked about, but books that are generally talked about a lot on BookTube. And it can be books that are being talked about now, or books that were talked about a couple years ago, but anything that was very popular on BookTube for a while is going to count for this category. So that'll kind of be up to my discretion, but a good example would be Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. I'm planning on reading that this year, so that would go in that category. All right, category 16 is books under 200 pages. I have the over 500 pages category. Now we're going to do an under 200 pages category. I tend to not read a lot of short books. So yeah, we'll see how that one goes. Category 17 is going to be sci-fi. I struggled with this one because I'm a little afraid to put this one on my list because I don't read a lot of sci-fi. But when I do, I tend to really enjoy it. So I want to try and read a little bit more. There's some classic sci-fi authors that I want to try this year, as well as some rereads that would fall in the sci-fi category. So I think I can do it, but I want to be purposeful in doing it and make sure I'm reading some science fiction. Category 18 is going to be books about books. As book lovers, we know that we love a book that talks about books. This could be a nonfiction book about books, or it could be a fiction book that just has a big emphasis on books or takes place in a bookshop. You know what I mean. Things where books play a central role. So, again, this will kind of be up to my discretion, but I think it should be fairly obvious what books will fit in that category. Category 19 is going to be books that are on my Goodreads TBR. If you don't know this, I have my physical TBR of books I own. I use my Goodreads TBR for books that I don't own, but I'm curious about. So this category is books off of my Goodreads TBR. Again, they're going to be books prior to 2020. So anything that was on the TBR 2019 or earlier will count for this category. And then the last category is going to be award winners. I really struggled with adding this category too because I don't tend to like really hyped or really popular books. However, it's unfair to not read a book just because it has an award stamp on it. So I'm going to make this award winners. I think I'm going to make it a little bit broader actually. So award winners or nominees. So like if I'm doing a Newbery Award, it could be the book that won the Newbery, or it could be a Newbery Honor book. It wouldn't necessarily have to be the winner. I think that makes sense. So anything that's an award winner or an honor book, anything along those lines, would fit into that category. My guess is a big percentage of this category will be Newbery winners and honor books. but I'm going to make it a little bit broader so it can encompass other things like, you know, the Hugo Award or Man Booker Prize or whatever. So award winners, nominees, honor books, those types of things will fit in that last category. So that is it. If you've watched all 4 of my 20 and 2020 videos, you have now kind of a broad overview of the reading I'm planning to do in 2020. Be sure and subscribe so you can see my updates along the way and see how I do. Let me know down below what your goals are for 2020, or if there's books you especially want to get to, or if you made a video about it, be sure and link it below so I can come find you. And yeah, thank you for taking the time to watch this video.